Here we go in homage to my partner, Michael Merlo, who's not here. As you can see, it's a Masiri sandwich today. We got a double trouble for the first time ever on the episode. Joe, it's nice to see you, bro. You know.
Yeah, it's nice to see you too.
Yeah. Joe is, filling the shoes of Michael Merlo today. It's going to be a Masiri-led podcast. Looking forward to it. I think me and Joe are pretty familiar with each other at this point, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
And a big day for me, taking over the host, role for the first time in the 4 years of this podcast. But excited for it. And Joe, I don't want to do much sweet talk. We got to just jump right into it. As we could see, alluding to our first topic with the helmets in front of us, two of the three teams now that this guy is going to be playing for, Davante Adams was traded from the Las Vegas Raiders. I tend to say Oakland a lot. I did not say Oakland. The Las Vegas Raiders today. Or yesterday by the time this episode comes out. The Raiders get back a compensatory draft pick from the New York Jets, third-round pick that could turn into a second-rounder depending on his performance. Joe, I mean, it's the biggest trade I can remember within the regular season in a long time. I guess my first question I'll say to you is, was this the right move for the Jets to do?
I mean, whether or not it was the right move to completely fix all of their problems, probably not. But was it the right move to help them on offense and also to give Aaron Rodgers a receiver that not only is he very familiar with, but that he put up historic numbers with the last time that they played together? Absolutely. I mean, part of the Jets' problem this year has been that his receivers have not been on the same page with him. And whose fault that is, who knows? Yeah. According to Aaron Rodgers, might be the receivers, but the receivers might say otherwise. And to have a guy that obviously has a lot of chemistry with him come into the fold is going to help them on offense. They do have other problems that I'm not quite sure if this Adams trade is going to fix. Yeah. And you're well aware of those problems as a fan of the team who watches them every single day. But I'm really looking forward to them reunited. I mean, I had the treat of watching prime Rodgers and Adams when they were both in Green Bay. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure we're going to get a little bit of a Walmart version of it now, considering they're a couple years older since the last time we saw it. But nonetheless, I think it will help give the Jets a shot in the arm. I think we'll also send a nice message to that locker room that, hey, we're not out of it. Here comes one of the best receivers in football. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it's going to work out for the Jets.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. There's clear problems with this team. I mean, if you look at at what went down on Monday night, the run defense and the offensive line were the two biggest issues. And does Davante Adams take care of either of those problems? No, he doesn't. So, I mean, it's a nice addition. I think, it's not going to hurt the offense in any means. I think, one of the biggest things is I think it's going to open up the passing game for these other receivers like a Garrett Wilson, who could possibly see a lot more work in the slot, which is where I think that he really thrives. I mean, that's not a knock for receivers. I think a lot of people like to take that as a knock. At the end of the day, I think you want that true X wide receiver to be able to play on the outside. But if you can have a guy that can be elite from the slot, ask Chris Godwin and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers what he thinks about that, from finally returning back to the slot this year and having the best year of his career. So I think there's going to be really positive things that come out of this for the offense. But, Joe, I mean, let's be real here. Like, when we're talking about the Jets and we're talking about the way that things sort of seem to be going with this team, this whole Aaron Rodgers saga, like, how much more fantasy football can you play? At one point, you got to come down to the X's and O's and go out there and perform on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's interesting because a lot of people thought that Garrett Wilson was essentially going to be the new Davante Adams for Aaron Rodgers when Rodgers came to New York. And in a lot of ways, I mean, Garrett Wilson has been getting the targets. An interesting statistic that I came across today is that Wilson actually has accumulated 31% of the Jets team targets. That's second in all of football. Obviously, that's going to go down now with Adams coming in. And you brought up an interesting point, which is that Garrett Wilson is going to play more in the slot. But what I find interesting about that is that I always viewed Adams and Wilson as two receivers that have very similar skill sets. And Adams is actually a guy that when he was in Green Bay, they used to play him in the slot a lot. In order to get him mismatches, he would run a lot of routes out of the slot, and that worked really well for him. So it's going to be very interesting to see the way that their skill sets bounce off of each other, and it will also be interesting to see how this is going to affect Garrett Wilson's target share.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely going to affect the target share. I can't see any way how Garrett Wilson getting, 33 targets or something like that within the past two games is going to be able to keep up that's with or without Davante Adams anyways. Wilson, you're right. I think they are similar in play style and similar in talent. I think obviously Adams at this point with the career resume he has, you would say that he's a more talented wide receiver. But Garrett Wilson still, you see the talent is there. He's still a young player. He still has time to mature. But that's really why Davante Adams is such a perfect fit, obviously with Aaron Rodgers, and just such a great wide receiver is the IQ, and he's just a smart football player. And even NFL executives talk about it today. He might not be the same receiver he was when he was 27, 28 years old. He's still a very good receiver, but that IQ doesn't go away, and that's why he's still such a threat in this league.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very curious to see the way that this just affects the Jets' offense overall. I think that Aaron Rodgers in particular I'm seeing a lot of from Aaron Rodgers right now is a lot of what I saw from him his last year in Green Bay, which is that there doesn't seem to be like there's any sort of decline in his arm strength or anything like that. I think that's all. And you see it a lot of the time. He's still making these high-level throws. He's still relatively mobile for a guy that's 40 years old, the way he's able to move in the pocket. But it seems like he's playing a lot of hero ball. Definitely. He's making a lot of very strange decisions with the ball that you wouldn't see from him even just a few years ago when he had the back-to-back MVP seasons with the Packers. So I'm curious to see if now with one more reliable target, and then obviously he has Garrett Wilson, and then he also has trust in Allen Lazard, if maybe he'll be doing less of that, or if it's going to become just the Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers show.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that works. And like you said, this isn't going to solve all their problems. They're a team that's struggling to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Maybe the fact that, now you have one more elite weapon to worry about on offense, it might open up the run game a little bit. Mm-hmm. So that's been a huge bugaboo for the Jets. They haven't been able to run the football. They haven't been able to control the line of scrimmage. So maybe it could have a positive effect in that way. And it better, because honestly, that's what's really been killing the Jets. And if they're not able to do it, I don't really see how this team's going to have any success.
Yeah, 100%. I screenshotted this tweet before just to remember to bring it up on the show because it made me laugh, and it's very accurate. Steven Zantz on Twitter said, "The Jets are operating like the drunk guy at the blackjack table who is down so much but continues to split and double down in hopes of winning money." Couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly what's going on. Woody Johnson just seems to be like, all right, let's get rid of this, let's do this, and maybe we'll win. At some point, they're going to be out of moves. I think they're already basically out of moves. I think the only other thing possible that they could do is pick up some veteran free agent, which, that's over with. You got to just win football games. Listen, this season, it's going to be a long season. We're only in week 6 going into week 7 here now. The Jets are 2-4. You look at the AFC wild card right now. You got the Colts, the Steelers, and the Chargers holding all those spots. The Colts are 3-3. They're only a game back of a wild card. Long season. They got Pittsburgh coming up. After that, they got New England. If you win those 2 games, you're back to 4-4. So I'm not going to say that I'm optimistic that it's going to get done, but at this point, it'd be silly to just give up on the season. Joe, another big trade in the AFC East and involving that Jets-Bills matchup from Monday night. The Bills say, okay, New York, we see you trading for Davante Adams, and they make a trade for Amari Cooper. By the way, MVS was cut. Wouldn't be surprised if now that's like a Jets practice squad edition, like bring the band together.
He'll be a chief.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Or he'll be a chief.
Yeah.
So the Buffalo Bills, in a similar trade as the Jets did, sent a conditional mid-round pick to the Cleveland Browns, including like a 6th and 7th round pick swap or something between them. Joe, there's a lot of different ways we could break down this trade. I'm just going to flat out ask you, are the Bills a Super Bowl contender with this move?
Yeah, honestly, I already viewed them as a contender in the AFC to represent the conference in the Super Bowl. It was obvious that they did need some help on offense. The first 3 weeks of the season, they were world beaters. It looked like, they were just a juggernaut. It was surprising how good the offense was, considering all the moves that they made or the lack of moves that they made in the offseason, all the subtractions that they had to that offense. They had a completely new dynamic on offense with a lot of solid weapons, but really no number one wide receiver or any talent that really stood out all that much, a lot of question marks. But regardless of that, through the first 3 weeks of the season, they were actually first in the NFL in offensive EPA per play. That's expected points added per play. However, in the last 3 weeks, they've fallen back down to earth. They're 16th in that statistic in that stretch. So it was obvious that, the wheels were kind of falling off and that they needed to make some sort of move or some sort of change in order to correct the offense. And I do really like the addition of Amari Cooper. I mean, similar to Davante Adams in the sense that he is getting up there in age and he's not necessarily the type of explosive player that he used to be, but he's still a great receiver. He's still very reliable. He's a great route runner. He's capable of getting separation. Unfortunately, he was stuck in purgatory in Cleveland with Deshaun Watson throwing him the football, and now he gets an upgrade with Josh Allen. He could be a very reliable weapon for him. So yeah, I think that that's a really nice move for the Bills. It does move the needle for me in that sense that I think that they're truer contenders today than they were yesterday, and I think he's going to be a big help for them.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a very good help. I think, it's funny, when they traded for Amari Cooper, the first thing that I thought was, how much older is he than Davante Adams? And then I come to find out he's actually younger than Davante Adams. That's just one of those things that as time went on, I kind of just forgot. I don't know. For some reason, I don't think Davante Adams is 31 going on 32 years old or whatever he is. It just doesn't, because he broke out like 4 years into the league, so it really doesn't feel like that. And Amari Cooper obviously was a premier pick from day one. I'm gonna disagree that they're Super Bowl contenders, because contenders, yes. Serious contenders, I don't think so. I still view Kansas City and Baltimore better than this team, and a bit like of a gap between it. And the reason why I say that is because I'm not concerned about their offense. I mean, I was. Last week we talked about it, and my overreaction was actually that they need to, right now, trade for a guy to get on the outside, and they did that. But this defense has problems, and I think that when you get into the playoffs and you're going to play one of these teams, like a Lamar Jackson-led Ravens team or a Patrick Mahomes-led Chiefs team, I think that their defense is going to have big, big problems. And we saw it on Sunday Night Football when they played Baltimore. I mean, they just got absolutely steamrolled. Baltimore got to do whatever they wanted. They played a little better, I guess you could say, against Houston on the road. They kept that game close, but this isn't a team that, the defense is going to be able to hold teams to below 20, 24 points in the postseason. I think they're going to have Josh Allen play hero ball like he's done a lot throughout his career. And like always, I just think at some point, the wheels are going to fall off and they're not going to be able to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, their run defense is definitely a problem. Similar to what we talked about the Jets, they have had trouble controlling the line of scrimmage on that side of the football. I mean, I think that what makes him a contender for me is that, we all know I'm a big Josh Allen fan.
Yeah.
And he has...
You and Merlot, I mean,
when we were together and we were talking about it, it was dangerous because we love Josh Allen. We
get a mop, man.
Okay, all right. Yeah, we... definitely gonna need a mop. We do. We love that man. I mean, he's shown that he can perform when the lights are brightest. I mean, listen, is Baltimore a better team than them? Absolutely. You could also argue that Houston is a better team than them. I'm not gonna argue against that. However, I do think that when the lights are brightest and when the postseason starts, I mean, quarterback play does matter, and I would rather have Josh Allen in a game at quarterback than I would Lamar Jackson in the playoffs at this point. And I also do think that their pass defense is good enough to hold up. Their run defense, like I said, is a problem, but the Bills have an identity on offense, and I think it got even better now by adding this great outside weapon in Amari Cooper. Sure, are they not as much of a contender as the Kansas City Chiefs? Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are the favorite. I agree with that. I'm not going to disagree with that. But I still do have faith in the Buffalo Bills. I think that they should win this division. And I do think that, yeah, absolutely. And I do think that they shouldn't be counted out when it comes to representing the AFC in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, well, I mean, at the end of the day, like this team, obviously with Josh Allen leading the team, they got a shot. And he's actually having maybe the best season of his career right now, especially when you talk about the concerns that everybody loves to knock him about is throwing interceptions, and he hasn't thrown an interception yet this year. And he passed the annual throw 2-3 interceptions against the Jets in MetLife test. So, I mean, he looks great. We'll see now how a true number one receiver coming over changes the offense and changes this whole thing that people were pushing and that Josh Allen said himself of like nobody really demands the ball and it's great. I don't think Amari Cooper is really known for being a diva wide receiver anyways. He's just a really good receiver. So we'll see what happens. Last thing I want to ask you before we talk about the other side of this trade, do we think that at the end of the year Josh Allen does finally get his MVP?
Yeah, I do think he's going to get his MVP.
I already know the answer.
And I just want to say,
ask that.
Okay, if you look at the favorites right now, there's a lot of names out there. Yeah. Jaden Daniels is a contender for it, which, I mean, I don't think that he's going to end up winning the MVP. I honestly think there's the way Caleb Williams has been playing recently, he could potentially have the rookie of the year.
I'm really glad you said that, and I don't want to interrupt you, but I have to because of what you just brought up. I was going to bring this up in the hate club, but I have something better. I think this whole, like, anointing the rookie quarterbacks thing, and, like, I did it myself, and I'm not – this isn't going where you think it's going. I think Jaden Daniels is great. But, like, have you noticed that the way Jaden Daniels is getting treated in the media versus the way Caleb Williams is being treated in the media already is, like, completely different? Like,
100%.
Just because a guy gets off to a slower start, and sure, he was the guy picked above the other one, like, can we not just now be like, okay, so Jaden Daniels is, like, all the way up, and Caleb Williams is a couple tiers below. Caleb Williams, at this point, might have better numbers than Jaden Daniels does. It's close. They're better through the past couple of weeks, so Caleb Williams has been fantastic.
Yeah, Caleb Williams has been arguably the best quarterback in football for the last 3 weeks of the season. That's not an exaggeration.
And it's not being talked about that much.
No, it's really not, and I totally agree with you. I mean, I think that people were very quick to anoint Jaden Daniels because the Commanders got off to this really surprising start. I mean, their offense is a juggernaut, honestly, and it surprised me. I thought the Commanders were going to win 4 or 5 games, and honestly, at this point, if they don't win the NFC East, I think it would be a little bit of a surprise just because Dallas is a complete shit show, and Philadelphia is basically about the same. So I do think that Jaden Daniels has been great, but like you said, the immediate anointing based off of the fast start, and it's not that Jaden Daniels gotten really any worse over the last couple weeks. He hasn't, but Caleb Williams has been fantastic for the last few weeks, and he's not getting the same type of media attention.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now, just going back to the MVP, he's probably the clear guy. I mean, Sam Darnold was, through the first 4 weeks, a contender, and then he had a crappy game against the Jets, and I mean, no disrespect to Sam Darnold. I think the Vikings are going to continue this and be a good team this year. But I think, for him to withhold those numbers for 17 games, keep that up, I think would be a little bit impossible.
Yes. I would
don't even say it. I'll say it first. Jordan Love is going to get his name in the conversation at some point. I mean, he's already – does he lead the NFL in touchdowns, or he's damn close, and he already missed 2 games?
Yeah, he's up there. And honestly, I wasn't even going to say Jordan Love. I'm not necessarily expecting him to win the MVP or anything like that. I mean, he's certainly hitting his stride, and we'll get more into that later. I just wanted to point out that Patrick Mahomes being a favorite right now is such a joke.
Yeah. Yep.
It's such a joke. Mahomes is having the worst season of his career statistically so far, but the Chiefs are undefeated, so he's got to be an MVP candidate. It's just beyond absurd. Their defense has been unbelievable. Mahomes is not playing well, but in spite of that, they are undefeated. That does not make a guy the MVP. If they aren't winning, I know Patrick Mahomes is fantastic. I still think he's the best quarterback in the world, but you can't just call the guy the MVP because the team is undefeated. If we're going to go by that criteria, Sam Darnold is still playing better than him. He still has better numbers than him. It would still be Sam Darnold over him.
Yeah, 100%. And, I think this is something that doesn't get talked about too much, but when you think about the NFL and the way that these quarterbacks are treated, like, some people like to say it's a what have you done for me lately league. I think it's like the complete opposite. I think there are so many quarterbacks that get passes because they get crowned early. And, like, for example, a CJ Stroud. He's not having a bad year by any means, but, like, he's not having exactly the year we thought he was going to have so far. But, like, nobody cares, and that's totally cool. Patrick Mahomes, like you're talking about right now, we're going to throw his name in the MVP ring, and, he's great. Obviously, he's the best quarterback in the NFL. But the MVP is a seasonal award. It's not a Hall of Fame award.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I think people who say that, it's just like a bit, it's got no substance to it. Joe, let's move to the other side of this trade really quick before we move on to our next topic. what the hell are the Browns like gonna do? I've been talking about it with Merlot for a couple weeks now. They're stuck. Like I don't know what the plan is.
Yeah, they arguably have the worst situation in football right now. I actually had the pleasure of traveling to Cleveland this past weekend.
Wow,
I got to do some.
I heard great things about that city. Beautiful.
Yeah, I got to do some hands-on reporting, some journalism,
yes,
if you will. When I was there, I spoke to a couple of Uber drivers who were big Browns fans, a couple of people at a wedding that I went to that were big Browns fans.
What's your Uber routine?
What do you mean?
What's your chop like? When you get in an Uber, like, are you how's the night going, boss?
Yeah,
busy night, boss? Or?
So, actually, that's a good question because, I went to this wedding with a very good friend of mine who shares the same name as me. His name is also Joe, and I know he's a fan of the podcast, so shout out to Joey. And we actually have a joint routine when we go into an Uber, which is that we always ask the same question, which is, how long you been Ubering for? We've been doing it,
It's a classic one.
It's a classic. We've been very good friends since college, so it's a tradition, a long-standing tradition. We've been in many Ubers together, and we always ask that question. Whoever asks the question immediately signals to the other one for a fist bump, and we share a fist bump. It's a real
very
nice,
romantic.
Really a huge bromance. It's a real nice experience, real bonding experience. But yeah, I did get to talk to some Cleveland Browns fans while I was there. And, I mean, Deshaun Watson is just public enemy number one over there. Yeah. I mean, there was also some talk about, the poor play of the offensive line, and there was some talk about Stefanski and the coaching and things like that.
No.
But this is just a contract that the Browns – I remember me and Merlot talked about it a few weeks ago, and I was on the show as well. The Browns can't move on from this contract. They can't. They're stuck in this contract. They have talent around the roster. Obviously, the number one defense last year, but even the defense this year has been below average, and maybe it's because they're on the field so much because the offense can't move the ball at all. Watson has arguably been the worst starting quarterback in football this year, and they're just stuck. I mean, honestly, like if you're asking me, well, where do the Browns go from here? I don't freaking know.
Nothing. The Browns just need to operate their franchise like they're at a $50 million deficit every year. That's all they could do. I really don't know what other options they have. And, the NFL owners and the NFL in general, well, not really in general, the players aren't, but the NFL owners are thanking the football gods big time on this one, because if this Deshaun Watson deal would have worked out, every quarterback that was negotiating a new contract would be looking at that one and saying, I want everything fully guaranteed, and it would have been an absolute nightmare. So now that quarterbacks want to negotiate that, and the Browns that owners could look at that and say, look what happened with Deshaun Watson. I am never pinning myself in that position. Owners should be very thankful for that. Yeah, I don't know what the Browns are going to end up doing. Okay. This show, we're going to be a little bit more moving forward because of the Wednesday release, but I wanted to talk about one game from the weekend. And obviously, we'll talk a little bit about games from the weekend when we're previewing next week. Joe, I can't remember like a crazier blowout. Maybe the Cowboys-Vikings game from 2 years ago when the Cowboys went into Minnesota and beat the crap out of that Vikings team that ended up losing to the Giants in the playoffs. The Detroit Lions just went into Jerry World and they were throwing hook and ladders to offensive linemen. Dan Skipper was running like slant routes. They didn't give a crap. It was hysterical. Unless you're a Cowboys fan, and like that lady that was throwing up on the concourse and the Lions fan walked by and grittied over her weak body. That was crazy.
Move, yeah.
Joe, is the Cowboys window officially closed?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have a lot to say about this, okay? So, I haven't viewed the Cowboys as true contenders in a couple of years.
All right, Packers. Yeah, this guy, Packer fan.
I mean, they
little brother syndrome. I get it. It's all good.
Little brother.
No, like you're
the
older brothers. Yeah,
older, right?
Yeah,
they
have the little brother syndrome.
Our child.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, daddy syndrome, I would call it.
Okay.
So the Dallas Cowboys, okay, and I'm a fan of Dak Prescott. I'm not about to go on to this whole rant. I think Dak Prescott should have been the MVP last year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think
ball. That's what I thought. Too.
Exactly. Lamar Jackson, weakest MVP ever, and I'm a Lamar fan. But anyways,
no,
so.
You can't be a Josh Allen fan and say you're a Lamar fan. You got to pick a side.
I enjoy good football.
Okay.
I enjoy good football, and he's a nice guy. Okay. listen, the Dallas Cowboys, the problem starts at the top. Jerry Jones, as long as he is involved in the Cowboys football operations, and as long as he's basically like the Dallas Cowboys mascot, where he's just constantly talking to the media, he's constantly doing interviews, he's constantly making remarks about the team, they're not doing anything.
No.
They're not winning anything.
He's literally like Emperor Palpatine too. I always thought he looked like Emperor.
He kind of looks like him too. So, and we all know how that ended for Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah, not good.
Not great. So, I would say that the Dallas Cowboys, as long as he's running the show from a football operations perspective, they're not winning anything. And they're in a bad spot right now. They had a really bad offseason where they basically said, okay, we're going to go into the year with no upgrades, with no running back. We're going to bring back Ezekiel Elliott. Let's just do a little like
Shaq Celtics meme.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Kevin Garnett, Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah,
exactly. Just what are we doing here, Dallas Cowboys? Okay, but you were talking about, I can't remember a blowout like this in a couple years. I mean, they're getting their shit just ran, just kicked in at home. They were undefeated at home.
They've went
last
from
year.
the best to the worst home team in the NFL.
I mean, the Packers basically came in there last year in the wild card round and beat a team that was not just beat a team that was undefeated at home, absolutely destroyed a team that was undefeated at home. And apparently this started some sort of curse or trend or something like that, because this is the third time this year that they have just gone down early at home. They're getting absolutely destroyed. First it was the Saints, then it was the Ravens, and now this week it was the Lions. They are just getting embarrassed at home. And honestly, I mean, yeah, sure, they're still 3-3 this year. I mean, it's not like it's the end of the world, but like you look at their 3 wins, like all right, like it's not against the best teams.
Yeah, and
like,
it really feels like that 3-3 is going to turn into like 5-8 really soon. Because I mean, they're just like, if you look back at some of their wins, I mean, that Giants game, they played a Giants team that I think is starting to show to people that it's really not very good. Even when they were flirting with a little bit of a high there after the win against the Seahawks. But I mean, they're skating by some teams. You look back at that win against Cleveland in week 1, you thought that was an impressive win. Now you look back and you're like, really? Cleveland?
Yeah.
I mean, who cares about
exactly.
that? So I think things are going to go downhill. Jerry Jones is the number one problem, and I'm really glad that you brought that up. This guy, the ego on this guy, it's just unbelievable. If I was a Cowboys fan, I would be disgusted by the thought of the guy's name. I don't understand why there are certain Cowboys fans that love Jerry Jones. Sure, they won all those Super Bowls 30 years ago. Okay, let's, we done with the 90s. Okay. Oh, really, Grandpa? You were a good NFL owner? Oh, tell us about the war times. Like, no. It's over with. He goes on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas, and these guys are, doing a good job asking him the tough-hitting questions.
Yeah, I saw this.
Because you're the Dallas Cowboys, okay? You want to be America's team and the big spectacle and this and that, and you want to be an owner that isn't one of these owners. Like, if you go around the NFL and said, name me the owner of all these teams, I'd maybe give you like 25% of the owners. Yeah. And that's including owners in New York.
Would you name me? Because I am an owner of the Packers.
I would name you. Isn't there a majority owner of the Packers, though? Like,
they don't have a majority owner, no.
I thought there was like still like...
They have a team like president, but they don't...
It's all a sham, that whole shareholder thing. It's just it's for them to get an extra $100 every year. Right. Anyways.
Right. Okay.
They're asking this guy they're asking Jerry Jones good questions on this, and instead of him, deflecting or trying to be a decent human being and talk with these guys, he's pressing them and saying, "Oh, I'll get somebody else to ask me these questions." And it got like super awkward, and they were just like, "Oh, haha, Jerry, come on!" And he was like, "I'm not joking," like just being a complete ass. Yeah. He's got zero accountability. His ego is through the roof. He thinks he's God on earth. And now, maybe there's a reason why the Cowboys are cursed, it seems like. It's because their owner takes zero accountability and thinks he's God. So
they're not cursed. They're poorly run.
They are.
That's it.
They're the best poorly run team I think I've ever seen. Like they win 12 games every year and they just fall
because
short.
They have an owner that spends money and they have like everything working in their favor basically, but people like to talk about franchises that are cursed. Well, usually the curse is that they have a shitty owner.
The Jets are cursed, okay? The Jets, how about this? The Jets are, since 2022, have forced 43 fumbles, and they've recovered 7 of them. That's 16%.
Okay, that is actually pretty good. Maybe the Jets are cursed.
But they're also poorly run. I'm not gonna ignore that. Joe, I know you got a ton of notes, but I mean, we got to move from topic to topic here. I do want to ask you this, though. Are they stuck? Because they just extended Dak. They just extended CeeDee Lamb, which, by the way, that relationship is not having a good season. That's a lot of money. And this isn't baseball where you could just blow through all the thresholds and say, screw it, whatever, we have all unlimited money. No, you gotta get under the cap. So are they stuck, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking if
are they stuck in this, I'll rephrase the question better. Are they stuck where they can't break through that wall to get to, this team can win a Super Bowl?
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, I think they're stuck as long as Jerry Jones is involved in football operations. But in terms of are they stuck in mediocrity with their roster construction, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, you could still. I mean, Dak and CeeDee Lamb have shown that they could still be an extremely dynamic, highly productive duo. You had to pay them the money that you did give to them. I mean, Dak did get market value. I mean, even though he's the highest paid quarterback in football now, he won't be next year, and somebody will pass him. I mean, it's just the way it goes. But they can improve the roster. I mean, it's always possible if they draft well and they do things like that. They're not going to have great financial flexibility. But that remains to be seen. I mean, it's easy for me to sit here and say, hey, well, you got to draft well. And they haven't really drafted well in the last couple of years. I mean, the defense obviously has a lot of problems, and they have no identity on offense. They can't run the football. They don't have a talented running back. They don't have an offensive line that's getting a push up front to open up holes for the mediocre running backs that they have. So they have a lot of work to do, but I don't know if they're stuck like this forever.
Well, speaking of the Detroit Lions, they have a big game this week for maybe the biggest game on the slate. There's a lot of really good games coming up in Week 7. Yeah. This is definitely in contention for the best one. Lions at Vikings could be down the line a look back. Wow, that's what decided the division. That's what decided the 1 seed. That's what decided a wild card spot. Who knows what this is going to end up like with the historic NFC North. Crazy stats out of that division. Can't believe they have the 4. Throw away the stat about that they got 4 teams that have 4 wins or more, and that's the first time that's ever happened or whatever. They have the top 4 teams in point differential in the NFL, and they're all in the NFC North. That's mind blowing. I can't understand that. But anyways, Joe, do you think that this is going to be a fight for the division?
I mean, I think it will certainly have huge implications in terms of who will end up winning this division. But there are a lot of divisional games left between all 4 of these teams. I really think that any 4 of these teams can win this division. I think that all 4 teams are extremely talented. I think for the most part, they're all well coached. I think that they all have good quarterbacks. I think that this game in particular is going to be big. It's going to tell us a lot about the 2 teams that are playing in it. But I do think that it might not necessarily decide the division by the end of the season just because there's still a lot of games left to be played. And like I said, you have a historically good division where all 4 teams, I think, can end up winning it.
They definitely all could be in contention to win it. And, we talked about it in the NFL preview show back in August, me and Merlot talking about this could, for the first time, have 4 teams that make the playoffs. And it might happen. I think I'm just going to go out on a limb here and throw out a hot take. I might get a lot of backlash for this, but I don't care. I believe it. I think the Vikings might actually finish last in this division. I think that the Packers and the Lions are definitely at the end of the year going to finish higher than them. And the Bears, I think, are just going to continue to get stronger. That's where I think it gets like a bit of a toss-up. I think that the Bears and the Vikings, you could swap them out 3rd and 4th, but I see it with this Vikings team. I saw it when they played the Jets, and I'm not being biased. They beat the Jets. But I feel like this team at some point is going to fizzle out a little bit, and they're going to kind of get exposed, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So that's my bold take, but I still think that everybody can make the playoffs for sure.
Yeah, I mean, as a fan of a team that also lost to this team, I mean, the Packers lost to them a few weeks ago. I did feel that the Packers beat themselves more than the Vikings beat them. I mean, the Packers were so putrid in the first half of that game. They still came back and made it a 2-point game in the second half. I don't view the Vikings as this like scary juggernaut, but I do view them as just as good as every other team in that division. Like, I don't think that, the Packers are necessarily better than them or that the Lions are necessarily better than them, but honestly, at this point, we're basically splitting hairs with all four of these teams, and I don't even really want to put them into different tiers because really, I mean, I could see it going a lot of ways for all of them. I mean, if the Vikings can basically just maintain what they're doing, the Lions pretty much the same thing. They really just have one blip on their radar, which was that loss at home to the Buccaneers. The Packers, I mean, Jordan Love, it seems like he's shaken the rust off completely now from the MCL injury that he had, and now he's really hitting his stride. He's playing some excellent football. The Packers' defense is way better than it was last year, and it seems to be improving week to week. And then you also have the Bears, who we know have a really good defense, and now Caleb Williams has been playing like one of the best quarterbacks in football for the last couple of weeks. Honestly, I think the sky's the limit for basically all of these teams, and like I said, I could really see any of the four ending up as winning this division. And unless something drastic happens where one team, sustains like a major injury to their quarterback or something like that, which I really hope is not the case for any of them, it would really be a shame, I think, if one of them didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the sky being the limit, I was ready to come on here a couple quarters into that game on Sunday and say that the Lions were gonna reach the sky. I'm going to be a little hesitant to say that because of the Aiden Hutchinson injury. I mean, that is just a huge blow for them. I mean, the guy was literally having a Defensive Player of the Year caliber season. But still, I'm sure that they're still going to find their way to make up for that the best that they can. I mean, how could you watch this Lions team play right now and be like, yeah, I'm confident that if we played that team in the playoffs that we would be able to beat them? I don't.
Yeah, their offense is like unstoppable.
They literally just do whatever the hell they want. And it's not like we sat here last year around this time, we're talking about the Miami Dolphins and being like, that offense is unstoppable, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it fizzled out. And we knew that the Dolphins didn't have the best offensive line or anything. We just knew that Mike McDaniel looked like a genius, and they had all this speed and something that we hadn't really seen before. Like, the Lions aren't doing anything that we're like, whoa, like that's like what a creative. I mean, they have these hilarious creative plays, hook and ladders and whatever. Ben Johnson's a great offensive coordinator who's going to get himself a premier head coaching job. But they are just like, nah, yeah, we got a better line than you. We're better than you. We're just going to push you and do whatever the hell we want. They just play bully ball.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, Ben Johnson is like just, I mean, if an offensive coordinator can win Coach of the Year, I mean, it should be him because he should be a head coach already. He chose to stay in Detroit and be the offensive coordinator there, and that was the best thing that ever happened to them because he really is just a phenomenal offensive mind. They're an offense that's greater than the sum of their parts because the scheme is so good, and they obviously do have a lot of talent there. So, yeah, the Lions are a true contender, and so is basically every other team in that division, I think. I mean, some of them might have more to prove than the Lions do because the Lions were in the NFC title game last year, but all four of them, I think, are fantastic teams.
Yeah. Well, Joe, don't worry. I know that we're talking about all these contenders in the NFC North, and we haven't talked much about one, but that time has now come. Segueing into another really exciting matchup, the Texans at 5-1 are going on the road to play Green Bay in Lambeau. We'll talk about it on the gambling show, but it's actually 2.5 in the Packers' favor right now, which I actually think is I don't really have a problem with the line. I think that's a really respectable line out of Vegas for both sides. Joe, are the Packers, are they really going to cement themselves here as a true contender? Because it's not like the Packers are this under-the-radar team, right? They went to the divisional round last year. They beat the Cowboys on the road. We know about that game in Dallas. And they played right down to the wire with the 49ers. They scared the crap out of them for sure. But when you look at the way that they've played this year, it's been a little bit of an odd story to start with the Jordan Love injury and, the Brazil game and Malik Willis coming in and then Jordan Love coming back. And they're 4-2 right now. But, I don't think it's a bold take to say that they're 4-2 without a real, like, eye-opening win.
Yeah.
Is this going to be that eye-opening win?
I mean, I sure hope so. I think that they are certainly capable of being the Texans, and I am very optimistic that they are going to get the job done. They're hitting their stride right now, especially Jordan Love is really hitting his stride. I mean, he's played really just fantastic football for the last 2 weeks. I mean, he does have an interception each of the last 2 weeks. Last week, completely not him. It bounced off. I mean, a receiver fell down and ended up being intercepted. The week before that, he did have an interception that a lot of people clowned on him for against the Rams. That was unfortunate, trying to avoid the safety and everything like that. And we know that Love has sort of that Brett Favre gunslinger mentality, but he's an unbelievable talent to watch. I mean, some of the throws that you see this guy make, I mean, it's amazing.
That's the thing with him. Like, sometimes when you watch him, and it's admirable, like, you'll be like, all right, well, he's going to go down here, or he's going to have to throw it away. And he just stays in there. And, I hope it doesn't come back to bite him with an injury one day, God forbid. But, like, he makes these throws with pressure in his face. I mean, the touchdown to Dobbs last week, it was like a cover zero, and it was a really, like, Dobbs gets the credit for that play, but that was a really good play by Jordan Love not to panic and just know, okay, I got one-on-one. Let me just get rid of this ball and give my receiver a shot. And, Romeo Dobbs, that's kind of the thing that he's best known for is, he's a physical receiver and he can make acrobatic catches like that.
Yeah.
So big credit to him. But, Joe, I'm super excited for this game. This is like revenge for me for that Vikings game a couple weeks ago when I had the Packers as my 3-star on the gambling show. It was the same exact spread. It was 2.5 at home, and I was super confident that this was going to be like the Packers coming out to the world and being like, hey, we're like legit. We're not just some, hey, let's make the playoffs and whatever. I think I'm probably going to fall for it again. I'm probably going to have the Packers on my board. The difference between that game and this game, for the Vikings game to this game, Jordan Love is been around for a couple of weeks now. I mean, that was the game when he had just came back against the Vikings, shaking some rust off. And it seems like the Packers are really hitting their stride. I mean, they looked great last week. So I am going to say that the Packers are going to pull this one out.
Yeah, and I just quickly want to give 2 shout-outs, and it's to each of the team's defenses. Green Bay's defense, I mean, I suffered through years of, Mike Pettin at defense coordinator, the years of Dom Capers in his last years as defensive coordinator, and then the Joe Barry experience the last 3 years. I want to give a shout out to Jeff Hafley because I love the style of defense that he's brought to this team. They seem to be improving every single week. They're bringing pressure. They're covering. The Packers arguably the best safety duo in football right now with Xavier McKinney, and then this rookie Evan Williams has been unbelievable, and he's now taken over as the full-time starter. He's making plays every single week. He's extremely sound in coverage. And then I also want to give a shout-out to the Texans defense because when people think of the Texans and when people think about this matchup, they think Jordan Love versus C.J. Stroud. And obviously that's a big headline. They're 2 of the best young quarterbacks in football. And C.J. Stroud has played really well this year, but the Texans defense has been phenomenal this year. They've been one of the best defenses in football. They held Josh Allen to 9 of 30 passing a few weeks ago. I mean, they're a phenomenal defense, and I'm really looking forward to the way that these 2 defenses play against each. Well, not actually on the field against each other, but how they play in this matchup this coming Sunday.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to both these defenses playing in this game. I mean, I hope the Packers, I think, if the blueprint to win this game is to take away the short stuff. I mean, with Nico Collins being out now, that's huge for the Texans, or bad for the Texans offense, because he was that blow the top off the defense. Nobody thinks Stephon Diggs. I mean, he really is it's sort of like a Cooper Kupp role light sort of a thing now. Like, he's kind of that play between the numbers, short route kind of guy, and he's still very shifty and more of like a possession receiver now, honestly. And Tank Dell, I mean, the connection looked strong between him and Stroud last week. But, yeah, they got to take away the short stuff, and they got to get pressure on the quarterback. And, usually in the NFL, that's the blueprint for any good game defensively. Joe, we gotta keep moving here. The last game we're going to be previewing is a Super Bowl rematch and a matchup that we've seen, in prime time and whatever. It's actually America's Game of the Week, which I really actually prefer over the Sunday Night Football thing. I like a real good 425 game. Just
absolutely.
Love that one. Chiefs at the 49ers. It's in Santa Clara. I got a little bit of a weird take on this game. It's going to be a really good game, but is it just me, or do you not get the same vibe right now as Chiefs 49ers in the past in terms of box office here, Chiefs 49ers. Am
Yeah.
I wrong?
I actually agree with that because I think that in the past you viewed both of their offenses as two of the most explosive, best offenses in football. And I talked about Patrick Mahomes before, and the Chiefs' offense in general has been very average this year. And the 49ers' offense as well has been very average this year. They're struggling to find their stride. And so, yeah, I think that there's a little bit less luster to this game just because there isn't as much explosiveness on the offensive side of the football for both teams. They're actually both very similar teams statistically in terms of where they rank offensively and then where they rank defensively. The 49ers defense, it's not like that elite unit that it's been in the past, and the Chiefs have been better than them. They have been more of an elite defense, but it's still a very good defense of the 49ers. I'm sure that once they get Dre Greenlaw back eventually, that will certainly change. But the 49ers defense has been a little hit or miss so far. I do agree with you. I'm not like as pumped for this game as I would be in the past just because I'm not really expecting to see that many points.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and also when you think about the stars, first thing you think about when you think about both these teams is loaded rosters and star power.
Yeah.
Especially the 49ers. And, there's no Christian McCaffrey, and we have, Rashee Rice was ascending to be a star, and you have a Travis Kelce who's gotten going now, but, I mean, he also, correct me if I'm wrong, he doesn't have a touchdown yet this year?
He does not have a touchdown
so,
yet this
yeah,
year, no.
it feels like Travis Kelce is on the decline. I think it's pretty obvious at this point. He is on the decline, and he has been on the decline. So you have that. You have the star power lacking, and, yeah, like you talked about, the offenses really haven't been scoring too much. And, I mean, the 49ers, I'm glad that they played the way they did on Thursday night because the way they had been playing before that, coming off that Cardinals loss, and you're kind of like, how is this team playing to the standard that they're playing? Or this is not the standard that they normally play to. So I think that they're going to prove that they're back, and I think they're going to finally hand the Chiefs their first loss of the year here. I don't know what your take is on what the result of the game is going to be, but I think the 49ers are going to be like, hey, by the way, we're still the 49ers, and stop thinking, the Seahawks aren't taking this division, which, by the way, they might be able to just walk away with the division because nobody else really looks like a threat for them right now.
No, yeah, I mean, I was just going to say that I don't really actually feel that game against Seattle moved me all that much because I don't think Seattle's that great of a team. They had this just ridiculously easy schedule to start the year, and now they're not playing nearly as well the last few weeks, playing actual football teams. So I'm not as moved by that game. I still do think that the 49ers have a lot left in the tank. I do envision their offense improving a lot as the year goes on. It's a very similar roster to what it was last year, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Not having Christian McCaffrey obviously sucks, but I still do think that the 49ers will get it together, and I do agree with you. I will pick the 49ers to win this game. I think that they need it more. The Chiefs can afford to lose this game, and I think the 49ers, this will be the start of them getting on the right track. It'll be a big win for them.
Yeah. All right. It's Hate Club time. Joe, because, this is our first time together, I think I should do the honors and let you say your first Hate Club, just in case it's the same one as me, because that actually happened with me and Merlo last week. So why don't you go ahead?
I really appreciate that. That's
Welcome
really
to the Hate
nice
Club,
of you.
bro.
Thank you. So I hate that the NFL makes me watch the Giants in primetime. Okay? I'm sick of it. Enough.
Swung for the fences.
Okay? I'm done with it. I know. Okay? They this great historic franchise. Okay. We talk about what have you done for me recently. The Giants haven't done shit in the last 10 years. They're an unwatchable football team in the last 10 years, okay? We obviously have a lot of friends that are Giants fans.
What do you mean, bro? Tommy Cutlets.
Yeah. Please don't get me started. We have a lot of friends that are Giants fans. Obviously, the man who I'm replacing today, Michael Merlo, is a huge Giants fan. And I just want to say sorry to him because I can't do it anymore, okay? I can't watch this team in prime time. I stopped watching the game. I typically watch every Sunday night football game, and I like watching the Bengals. I like Joe Burrow. I'm a fan of their offense. I had fantasy implications in the game. I couldn't watch the game anymore. I mean, the Giants are just unwatchable. I especially hate that the last few weeks I had to endure Daniel Jones propaganda, okay?
Yeah.
The guy puts up
a
nice little 4-week stretch in this training wheels offense where Brian Dable, oh, Daniel, no, it's okay. You don't have to throw the ball downfield. No, I'm going to scheme guys open for you, okay? Oh, what's his face is out? Neighbors is out. Okay. Well, Wan'Dale Robinson, we're going to scheme stuff for him. He's going to have like a 40% target share.
10 for
and you just, and you just shove the ball down his throat, okay? I can't do it, okay? I can't watch Daniel Jones anymore. We had 4 weeks ago, I was on this show, and 5 weeks ago, I was on this show, and Merlot was ripping on Daniel Jones, saying how horrible he is, whatever. And then I'm getting texts and group chats, propaganda. Just propping Daniel Jones up.
Like major propaganda.
Just major like I'm
Patrick
done with it.
Mahomes comparison.
Exactly.
Like that was a real tweet.
Like I'm done. Okay? I'm done with the propaganda, and I'm done with the NFL putting the Giants on my screen in prime time. I cannot. They're like my least favorite team to watch. They're so boring. They have so little star power, especially on offense. There's nothing to look forward to. Oh, okay, here we go. Yeah, they lost 17-7. Like, enough, okay? Yeah. That's what I hate.
Yeah. That's a great one, Joe. You swung for the fences on your first one. I loved everything about that. That was great. I strongly agree. And I'm not even gonna lie. If people come to me and say, "Well, you say that about the Giants, but I'm tired of the Jets on primetime,"
yeah, okay,
I'm cool
fine.
with that.
Yeah.
I'm totally cool with that. I'm honestly kind of tired of the Jets on primetime. Like, can we just play a 1:00 game, please? Like, I don't. If I was an NFL fan, like, and I saw Jets Steelers coming up on the Sunday night schedule, I'd probably be pissed because I'm kind of pissed about it too. Like that Jets, like that should be 1:00. Jets Steelers is kind of the definition.
There are way better games.
Of a 1:00
way better games this week than Jets Steelers.
Yeah, like it's just too much with the prime time. It's the NFL just really kind of said screw you, I think, with the schedule that they handed us. But that's a discussion for another day. Joe, you're the one filling in for Merlot, but I guess with this take, I'm basically filling in for him because this is something that he would strongly agree with. My hate club is, in all caps, Nick Sirianni being a jackass and this entire Philadelphia Eagles culture, if you want to call it that. So infuriating. Like, I don't understand. This guy, you beat the Cleveland Browns.
Yep.
Like, do you want a gold star? You beat them by 4 points. They are terrible. You made Deshaun Watson play meaningful fourth quarter football. You should actually be ashamed of yourself.
Yeah.
And then you have the balls to go at it with your own team's fans on the sideline that are chanting at you to get fired or whatever the hell they were saying. And I just now want to talk about the rest of the culture of this team, that the fact that there's like an arrogance about this team when they have been a bad football team from week 11 of last year till right now. They have been a poor football team. They have a below 500 record easily since that time. And I don't understand where the arrogance comes from. Ever since that whole Big Dom thing and the 49ers embarrassed them on the road, things are just looking bad for this team. Nick Sirianni apologized in his press conference. Oh, thank you so much, Nick. You're just a great guy. He's got all this arrogance about him.
So smug.
The looking at the camera in the Super Bowl, the waving his fingers, whatever. The talking about the Giants and, oh, sorry, we got your best player. Well, Nick, you're not really doing much with their best player. And I'm going to say it right now, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be on my board too. I don't know. I got to look at other stuff. I think they're going to lose to the Giants on Sunday. I actually think that they are going to lose to the New York Giants. I don't think it's going to be a pretty game. I genuinely think that this team is going to go into MetLife Stadium. They're going to lose. And now all of a sudden, this Nick Sirianni that was making fun of his own fans chanting at him to get fired, that he's going to be looking for employment by like week 10.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the fact that he hasn't been fired already, and I'm not the type to say, like, blame it all on the head coach or whatever, but it's just so painfully obvious from last season, too, that this guy doesn't do a lot for this football team, that a huge reason that they went to the Super Bowl was because of Shane Steichen on the offensive side of the ball and then Jonathan Gannon on the defensive side of the ball, both guys that have had success as head coaches now. I mean, limited success, but we know that they were great coordinators with the Eagles. I totally agree with you. He's such a clown. He's
such
just,
a moron.
It is impossible to like the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, the Eagles fans don't like the guy either.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I agree. I think that he will be in the unemployment line fairly soon, and that's a great hate because he's so easy to hate.
And I can't believe it, but like, I actually hate him more when he's on the opposition of the Eagles fans than when they were embracing him. Because we all know Eagles fans, and listen, I get it all the time as being a Yankee fan and being somebody from New York and getting called obnoxious and this and that, but like I'll always stand by it. Philly and Boston are so much worse. But Philly might be the worst, and people calling it, the Birds got to fire Sirianni, and whatever the hell they're saying. Like, he's actually worse when he's on the other side of it, because at least when they were winning, of course, now the fans are with him and he could do his little antics and stuff. But now that you're losing, like, we all know winning is the best medicine and the best cover-up there is. Now that you're losing, you look like a complete moron, and acting arrogant, it's like, it makes zero sense whatsoever, and you look like an idiot. So that is the end of my Hate Club segment. That's become by far my favorite segment on this podcast. It's almost
Gets
therapeutic.
The juices flowing.
It's
Therapeutic.
Absolutely. Joe, finally to wrap up the show, let's have some overreactions from Week 6. Again, I'm gonna let you go.
I appreciate it once again, and my overreaction is that the Trevor Lawrence contract, the contract extension that he was given this offseason, is immediately one of the worst contracts in football. Mm-hmm. Trevor Lawrence was given a 5-year, $275 million contract extension by the Jaguars this offseason, and it was viewed as a little bit of a question mark, right? Like, all right, like the guy's been in the league for, it was, I guess, 3 years at that point, and, it was some mixed results. I mean, he had, that really nice run 2 years ago. It's the last half of the season. They had that big comeback in the playoffs against the Chargers. He looked really good. Last season was disappointing. He didn't really play all that well. I called into question, the talent around him in the sense that I thought that there were some weird scheme fits. It seemed like, they had a lot of receivers that were very redundant of each other. They basically had 3 slot receivers in Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones, and Christian Kirk. There's been a lot of excuses thrown around for this guy. But I'm sorry, okay? At some point, you're the first overall pick. You're paid all this money now. Like, I'm done with the excuses, okay? He's been in the league for long enough. You got to show me more. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, after 3 years, you know what a quarterback is. And I think we know what Trevor Lawrence is.
Daniel Jones.
Yeah,
then it's 8.
Yeah, then it takes
8,
14
9,
years, obviously. Yeah, right. Well, okay, yeah. I'm so excited for his contract extension in 12 years. I'm very excited for that. Okay. Anyways, there are obviously some exceptions. You have late career bloomers like a Geno Smith or a Sam Darnold, people like that. But Baker Mayfield, but those are typically rare.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion, in Jacksonville at least, that contract is going to be a big stain on them. I think that it was a mistake. And like I said, I haven't seen enough from him. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback, but to this point in his career, he's basically been an average quarterback.
Yeah.
And I don't really see that changing anytime soon.
I mean, it was a major mistake. I mean, I'm looking at the numbers right now. This isn't one of those contracts where we joke and talk about the Daniel Jones one and say, they could get out of it in 2 years. But like, they can. They had, after this year, the Giants, if they do want, could get out of the Daniel Jones extension. This has a potential out after the 2028 season. Like, this is a full...
It's a commitment.
This is a full commitment.
Yeah.
So, it's not good for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I mean, I think it's gonna, like we were talking about before, with Deshaun Watson and saying how owners are gonna say, I'm not doing that again. We kind of saw this trend in the NFL the past couple of years, and it's always been like that, where that guy's the highest paid at my position. Well, guess what? Now I want to be the highest paid. I think now we're gonna kind of see a bit of a regression in this trend of being like, Jordan Love got paid $55 million. I want $55 million. They're gonna be like, well, not all of you deserve $55 million.
Yeah.
And they're going to be able to point to the Trevor Lawrence contract and say, you see, this is what happens. So, yeah, really bad contract. And I don't think that's an overreaction. All right, my overreaction. I'm not going super crazy this week. I've had some bold ones ever since we started doing this, but mine is that the Cincinnati Bengals need to do whatever they can do to get T. Higgins to stay with this team for the remainder of Joe Burrow's, or of T. Higgins' prime. Is it just me, or like when you watch this team and you watch T. Higgins on the field alongside Jamar Chase, I mean, they are deadly. And, we talk about the Bengals, and we saw the success that they had in that year when they went to the Super Bowl. And, T. Higgins caught a touchdown, which was very sketchy with a lot of contact on Jalen Ramsey. But,
yes.
That's hindsight's 2020, and we could argue about that all day. He is a key piece to that. And, I think we got to stop thinking about the Jamar Chase show being in Cincinnati, because T. Higgins, before Jamar Chase got there, was on the uptrend to become their number one receiver. It was a bit bold when they drafted Jamar Chase, and Higgins has still been a very, very productive NFL player with the Bengals. And their offense is not the problem. Their defense is the major, major problem. But I do think that if they were to say, okay, let's take an emphasis on defense this offseason, T, sorry, you got to go, but we need to ramp up this defense. I think that it will actually be a major, major issue for the offense, because I think with just Jamar Chase out there and whatever the receiver they'll bring in to fill the role of a T. Higgins, which won't be possible, I think it's going to be a real, real big issue for them. And I think that Burrow needs Higgins if this team wants to go anywhere.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that especially when you highlight the fact that outside of T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, there isn't really a ton of weapons out there for the Cincinnati Bengals. Receiving depth does matter, and just talent depth with your receiving core matters a lot. And they don't really have a lot outside of the two of them. Shout out Chase Brown, my fantasy savior. I love Chase Brown. However, I do think that keeping T. Higgins is paramount for this team. I completely agree with you. I think that the thought of trading him this offseason or not extending him is just a major mistake. He's super important to this offense. Jamar Chase, I think, is one of the best receivers in football, probably a top 5 to top 3 receiver in the NFL. However, T. Higgins would be the wide receiver 1 on a lot of football teams. He's arguably the best wide receiver 2 in football. Put him up there with guys like Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith. Yeah. I think he's extremely, extremely important to the offense. Yeah, good point. Yeah. I think he's extremely important to the offense, and I completely agree with that take.
Yeah, and also when you talk about these receivers, Jamar Chase is going to want an extension this offseason. Obviously, we know about that this offseason that he wanted one. A perfect compliment. Higgins is the guy that is big body guy, great hands, great catching in traffic. And, he's also an athlete. I don't want to think that, he's just a box out there that he can't move. Yeah. But Jamar Chase is more of the shifty guy, the catch and run, route runner sort of dude. But they really play very well off of each other. And, great wide receivers are a quarterback's best friend. So for Joe Burrow to want to, continue to play at an MVP-like level and hopefully compete for the playoffs and championships throughout his career, I think they're going to need to keep T. Higgins. And also, I talked about this last week, I would not give up on the Bengals at all yet.
Not at all.
They definitely, I think if I actually got a shot, I'll do it right after the show. I'm going to put a bet on them to make the playoffs. I think they're going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Joe, that wraps up episode 146 of the Hardline / also known as the Hardline Sports Talk. It was fun, bro.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
Yeah, great chop.
Great chop. We do this basically just like me and Merlo. We do this off air all the time, so it was nice to do it in front of a camera. Yankees play tonight. Hopefully when this gets released, they're 2-0 heading to Cleveland. And we'll see you guys for the gambling show that comes out on Friday morning.